This is Gianluca Conte, and I am continuing our series on You Can Cook Italian. And what we are doing is we are here in central Georgia, in particular a town called Sandersville. And Sandersville is located between Macon and Augusta. Nowhereville. All right. And what we're going to do is we are in the kitchen of author William Hovey Smith, who, well, is no longer with us now. But Smith did some very interesting things in wild game cooking. And we're going to cook in his kitchen. Well, I usually have a table, way out there, and this ain't there. So we're going to have to do this in stages. And interestingly, we brought nothing with us. Nothing. We're going to use his tools, we're going to use his knives, we're going to use his game, and we are going to cook spaghetti and meatballs. Well, the reason we're doing spaghetti and meatballs this day, this hour, this year, is because this is the 50th anniversary of this book. Yes, Italian-American cooking. And of course, that's me, 50 years ago. And I'm lying on a bed of spaghetti and meatballs and offering you a meatball. Well, we're going to make spaghetti and meatballs. And I need to tell you a little bit about this book, QCP, Queen City Prince. That was the name of the little group we had in high school. And Betch, B-E-T-C-H, Betch. And what in the world does that mean? Well, that's an Italian curse word that doesn't really translate too well in English and relates to a part of the female anatomy that I'll really not go into. But what it generally means, more specifically to cooking, is I'll do it my way. And if you don't like it, double. Very well. So, we shall proceed. Smith was a very interesting fellow in his own right. This is one of his books, Backyard Deer Hunting, Converting Deer to Dinner for Pennies per Pound, and these are some of the recipes that he actually cooked. And he cooked deer, he cooked wild hog, he cooked swan, he cooked ducks and geese and squirrels and rabbits and so on and so on and so on and so on. Most of which I never saw, not in North Carolina. Yeah, we had a few rabbits, but that was about it. And then, when he did his novel, his first one, he went to Italy, and he specifically went to Sicily. And as you follow the characters around their adventures, being pursued by the mafia and others, you get to sample the food and tour the island. And when he did his second novel, he investigated Chicano culture. And so you learn about cooking in West Texas, as well as in Detroit, as the family gets involved in moving with their newborn baby in the worst snowstorm in decades. And the guys get captured by bandits, and they get ransomed to get away at the shooting, blah, 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 blah. And they go on trial for capital murder in Alpine, Texas, where they will be shot or hanged. And why have the author on his food? Well, this is Chef John Foss, and he is a noted chef in Louisiana. This was his magnus opus. This was his condensation of all Louisiana cooking, all the history, all the people that he could possibly dredge up, and with recipes and experiences and blah, blah, blah. And it is a huge book. Well, very worthwhile. Excellent recipes, excellent treatment, excellent study. If you're interested in Louisiana cooking, this is one to have. Now, back to my own books. I wanted to make them a bit more accessible than that, and not quite as, dense, frankly. And so uniquely, I tell you how to pronounce the name of the dish in Italian. Yeah, even if you're not Italian. So when you go to a restaurant, you don't embarrass yourself. And we tell you interesting things about them. And it will be the spaghetti and meatballs from here that we will be cooking. Now, because we are in one of the more remote regions of North America from a culinary point of view, we cook with what we can find and what we can get. When we can get Italian, no, use Italian. When we cannot get Italian, well, we think of something else. We get something else. So, the end result is wherever you are, yes, you can cook Italian food anywhere in the world. And that's what we're going to talk about. Now, Smith was a hunter. And unlike most of my dishes where I use prepared pork and commercial beef, this is going to be done with wild hog meat and venison. And when I get this cleared away, ain't got much room to work with, then we will bring it on. Boom. And what we have here are two beautiful pieces of meat. They are not exactly the same weight. Can you tell the difference? Which is venison and which is pork? Well, the venison is the darker colored meat on the left, and the particular cuts of meat, the venison is the rump, and also the hog is a ham with the bone completely in. It's just of a smallish hog. You don't want the great, biggest, hugest animal in the world if you want good meat to eat. It makes good sense to choose the younger animals for table fare. I'm using gloves for two reasons. One, this is wild game. In some cases, you may have wild game that carries some real nasties. Now, both of these items have been frozen for, almost a year, although they show no freezer burn. And they may have contained organisms which could really hurt you. Typically, these are in blood. Well, these have been frozen for, like I say, a year, and likely they're long gone, but just out of an abundance of caution, and to make the point that when you're working with wild game fresh, always wear gloves. Frozen, much of the risk is gone, but never entirely eliminated. So, what I'll do with this, at this stage I'll wear the gloves, and then when we get actually to, after we mix the spices and the salt and the pepper and blah, 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 blah in and ground it, then we'll roll them out by hand without the gloves. But, again, wild meat, gloves, got you? All right, so we proceed. This is very tender. Now, if you were wondering what muscle was that, it was this muscle right here that I just cut out. There's a bone under here. And the rest is going to go in the stock pot. Now my dad, Papa, owned restaurants in Charlotte, North Carolina. And that's where I was brought up. One of the things I got to do as a kid early on was to crush peppers. And I sort of always enjoyed it. You get a good nose full of good smells. And what kid doesn't like to destroy something and get away with it? So, if you have a small kid, yes, this is something you can put him to. And there are people who have done cookbooks concerning pre-American contact Italian cooking. They go back to Roman sources. And I'll leave that to them, I think. Yeah, it's interesting, all right. And I cannot imagine life in Italy without tomatoes and without peppers. Now, for those of you who will be looking at the live broadcast show, in some venues, they have the smell setting. So when I grind up these peppers, like I'm doing right now, you'll be able to smell. All you do is put in your credit card, and it'll activate it, and you'll be able to smell exactly the things I cook. Okay. Now that is about how I like it. Now you can do them finer, okay, but yeah, that gives a good result all around. Now, we have some Mediterranean sea salt. They don't tell us where it comes from. Some salt comes from Spain. There's a salt pan and a very historic salt production facility, Trapano, in Sicily. Some from Israel, the Dead Sea, who knows? But it's Mediterranean. You can't get Italian, you get Mediterranean. Okay, good mix, I think. It's flaky and sort of coarse. Now it's going to go through the grinder, which is going to reduce some of it a little bit. And now we're going to mix it all up and grind it. I'm a one-hand mixer. When I'm mixing meat like this, I do it with one hand and use this hand to feed it into the grinder and leave the other hand free to actually operate it, as you'll see shortly. We have a variety of stuff for both our meatballs and the tomato sauce, including some very interesting looking tomatoes, as well as some very colorful peppers here. Now about these peppers, these are among the world's hottest peppers, to be used sparingly and cautiously, and usually chopped fine or boiled in a stew or soup or something of that nature. And so we'll progress with these very cautiously. And in the meantime, we're going to wash these up, get them dry, then we'll start to crush them and actually make the tomato sauce itself. Now everything has a different taste. Sweet, not so sweet, bitter even, maybe. Juicy, good. Not sweet, not sour, solid tomato flavor. Yeah, these little grape tomatoes do have some taste, and they're not, they won't off-taste your dish. Okay, that's good. Different? What about this fellow? Different? Let us see. Okay. Has seed, but not terrible many. Soft, mushy. It's ripe. Okay, but nothing special. Jalapenos. Now this has got to be one of the biggest jalapeno peppers I have ever seen in my life. What? 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 Big! But the thing about jalapenos is they vary much in their amount of heat that they give off. So we shall see. You don't dare use them unless you know. Yeah. Ah! How to clear your sinuses, all right. Well, cool it down a little bit. Okay. But this is what you need to know. If you put this whole jalapeno in there, you would have had something so hot that most people couldn't have eaten it. Don't do that. Before I get through, I want to show you a little bit about Smith's knife here. It is beveled on one side. And when you chop like this, it does very nicely. And then you scrape it up, or clean up your cutting board like that. Well, if you've never used a knife beveled one side, well, should. Because it gives a straighter cut through the work. Well, came up with a good idea. Not that he was the first, but good idea. We now have our stock water here. And, well, to make marinara sauce, typically, you go ahead and you boil the tomatoes whole in plain salted water. Well, you'll change it up a little bit. I've already sliced these. And they go in the pot, right? Like there. All right. And that's going to be our sauce base. I could not find the cheeses I was looking for in the Ingalls store in Rennes, Georgia, which is about 30 miles from here. But we did find at least some Italian cheese. So we will use this and see if we can chop it up with our peppers here. So it will feed through this manual grinder. I'm a little cautious about feeding too much vegetable material through it if it's too coarse, for fear it will gum it up. So we will not know until we try. With a mechanical grinder, it would have been no problem at all. We can now proceed with our one-handed mixing and grinding. Okay. Should see product coming out now. One thing you want to do while you're doing your grinding is to take some stale bread, and this is 3-day-old Italian bread, and add some whole milk to it and let the bread soak. We have a problem with our tomato sauce, and guess what? It's the tomatoes. Indeed. We use those grape tomatoes, and they refuse to release the skin. And we also have some skin in here from the others. Now this is just a few days after Earth Day, and when we are encouraged to use the utmost of the natural ingredients, and we have a grinder right here. I've just cleaned it on the inside, so the holes are all clean. So why not grind the skins and make those a part of the sauce? So we shall. Never done this before. Okay. That looks good to me. And now we have it. We're now getting to the point where we're going to finish off the tomato sauce. All right, we have some extra virgin olive oil and good. Yes, sir. Okay. Enough to line the bottom there pretty good. And you're going to be ready to add our garlic and tomatoes. There. Yeah. That's the right sound. That's what you should hear. If you don't hear it, then you aren't hard enough. But it's already too late. You're committed. Very close. Let's start the sauce reduction process. You don't want to change any salt or pepper or anything until you reduce the volume to about the consistency you want. Our tomato sauce has now been reduced to the point that it's ready to jar up. And what we did in addition was we added bay leaves, and 3 bay leaves in here now, and a 1/4 stick of butter, and a good sprinkle of dried oregano. And that really made this dish. Yeah, Is this a marinara sauce? No, it's not. Is it a better sauce than the marinara sauce? Well, for my taste it is. For your taste it probably would be too. And so would the sauce that you would make it on. You can cook Italian. You do not have to exactly follow recipes. You use exactly what you have or can get. Authentic ingredients from Italy, fine if you can get them. If not, you substitute. If not, you may use some new procedures, like, for example, grinding up the skins like we did for this, because what we had were those grape tomatoes. And it worked out wonderfully well. There are no such things as a Stasi pastor police that are going to come after you for cooking up something delicious in your own home, in your own way, in the Italian style. Food preparation, at least when you start with the raw materials indeed, takes a very long time, as you saw. But we now have our meatball mix ready. We have our spaghetti in hand, and we have our tomato sauce cooked. So tomorrow, we will broadcast live from, where is that? Huh? Sandersville, Georgia, yes. And this will go out to auditoriums on 5 continents. Yes. And I will be able to field questions. We have a panoramic across the room here. And I can see the audience. And you will be able to send me questions. And in some events, you'll be able to stick your credit card in and actually smell the dishes that I'm cooking. So, we'll see you tomorrow, and we'll take our meatball mix, and we'll actually make and fry up the meatballs. We'll cook our Italian spaghetti, and to my very dear beloved fans, salute!